When you're rebuilding something, one of the keys is don't get distracted by the little stuff. If you're rebuilding something, you got to look at the big picture, right? We all know that. Don't get distracted if you're the Lakers because you beat Utah. Last night, Anthony Davis got hurt. Again, it looked brutal, like really brutal. They say he's out 2 to 4 weeks. I'm sorry, but if you watch the injury, that's not a 2-week injury. Dude's out for a month. He's increasingly brittle, and we know that. And the Lakers are in 9th place in the West. They're not the 9th best NBA team. They're 9th right now in the West. They're not close to a Milwaukee. They're not close to a Philadelphia. They're not as good as Miami in the East. I said it yesterday, before he got hurt, I would trade Anthony Davis and start over. This is not a great roster. It's an old roster. It lacks great chemistry. It doesn't have depth. Don't get distracted beating Utah. The Rams are celebrating a Super Bowl. You're clinging to a win over Utah. You're 9th in the West. What's remarkable about this is LeBron is still excellent. He has a chance. He'll either win the scoring title or finish second. LeBron was dominating in the fourth quarter last night. He's really a marvel, a physical marvel, absolutely great. And a guy that'll get MVP votes can't get this roster above 9th. And LeBron's never really worked or flourished with young teammates. He struggled with Mario Chalmers in Miami. He didn't want anything to do with Andrew Wiggins in Cleveland. And first thing he did in L.A., he never got along with Kuzma, the Josh Harts, the Lonzo Balls. He flushed them out. So AD was a natural fit. Right? A veteran, been around, bad franchise, come join LeBron. The problem is he's now become the worst possible teammate of 19th year LeBron. He's simply unreliable. And what you have in the NBA, and it's something we've always known, right? Like I say in the NFL, you can't be terrible in any unit in the NFL. Bengals are really, really bad on the offensive line. It cost them the Super Bowl because the coaching's too good in the NFL. You don't have to be great at everything. You don't have to be great at a lot. You can't be terrible at anything. In the NBA, you have got to have second and third scoring options. Even Kobe Bryant, after Shaq and before Pau Gasol, lousy Laker team. Michael Jordan, before Pippen, never won a playoff series. I mean, these are the greatest players of all time. The problem is now Milwaukee's got a second and third option. Philadelphia just got a second great option. Tobias Harris, a solid third. Phoenix has 3 or 4 options. Golden State, several. With Anthony Davis's unreliability, Lakers don't have a second option on any given night. And there's nothing to grab onto with this organization. Are they an elite three-point shooting team? Nah. Are they an elite defensive team? Nah. What are they great at? Do they have great chemistry? Nah. How about draft picks? No. Youth. Some young ascending players. No, don't have that either. This is a blow-up roster. That's what it is. And Anthony Davis will come back, and between he and LeBron, they'll win a playoff series. Buy low, sell high. I think it's time to move off Anthony Davis. I don't think you should look at it as a failure. He came as a brittle player, got you a championship, and I've said this before. The pandemic did the Lakers, more than any team in this league, a huge favor. It gave brittle AD and older LeBron a 3.5 to 4 month hiatus. They have never duplicated it. It's been disappointing since. And that injury was not a 2 to 3 week injury. That was brutal. That was like watching at home, hard to watch a second time. I'm sitting there. That's a cringe injury. That is maybe not Joe Theismann, but like ugly, ugly injury for a big guy who keeps getting hurt more regularly. I think it's time to move off him and start over. You got Super Bowl champs down the street celebrating. Lakers now are not a top 12 team in the NBA. Don't get distracted beating Utah. So Warren Sharp does a lot of analytic stuff in the NFL. His guys do a really good job. And so they did some homework and came out with this, and I think it's kind of interesting. The teams that have outperformed preseason expectations the most in the last half decade: Saints, Titans, Bills, Chiefs, Rams. Do they all have great quarterbacks? No. Was Jared Goff For most of the last 5 years, great, Ryan Tannehill. And then he has the teams that underperformed preseason expectations most in the last 5 years. Giants, Broncos, Jets, Jags, Lions, Bengals, Panthers, Falcons. Well, you could say they all have bad quarterbacks. No, they don't. Lions had Matt Stafford. What is the only thing that we can align these two groups? Coaches. The teams that outperform the last 5 years all have excellent coaches. The teams that underperform all have fired coaches and Zach Taylor. And let's be honest, is he a great coach? I'm not sure. I didn't have a great Super Bowl. Sean McVay winning a Super Bowl crowned him. He's a made man. I would argue today there are 8 coaches that I consider great coaches, and all of them have something I can wrap my arms around that makes them a great coach. To me, the 8 great coaches in the NFL are Sean McDermott, Mike Vrabel, Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, and Belichick. And keep that up there. All of them have something we know to be true. Belichick is the greatest defensive coach ever. Andy Reid's the great play designer. Shanahan is the brainiac. Tomlin is kind of an emotional, motivating coach. Mike Vrabel, similar to Tomlin, holds it together, great culture builder. Sean McVay, the young genius. And Sean McDermott, the best young defensive coach in football. John Harbaugh also falls into, like Vrabel and Tomlin, a great culture builder. And what about Matt LaFleur? And that's an interesting question to me. I don't have Matt LaFleur in that. So Matt LaFleur came into this league. We knew him as one of the 3 Musketeers, right? It was Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and Matt LaFleur in Washington. Now, privately, those 3 would all admit that Shanahan is schematically A++. McVay would tell you that privately. I'm not as good as Kyle schematically. McVay is known as great in front of people, great personality, big personality, great in the room, amazingly optimistic, positive culture builder. LaFleur's neither. What's his strength? Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, look at Green Bay's record. Since he arrived, it's better than McCarthy. Has anybody ever considered what I'm about to say? When Mike McCarthy coached Green Bay in that division, Jim Caldwell, for 4 years, was the coach of Detroit. He and Matt Stafford, they had a winning record 3 of those 4 years. They once won 11 games. Now, Detroit fired him because they're Detroit. Matt LaFleur inherited Matt Patricia in Detroit. So let's look at Chicago. Mike McCarthy had to face Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler's pretty good. Got to the playoffs. Matt LaFleur got Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields. Minnesota, they peaked before Matt LaFleur got there. 2 years before. Stefanski left. The offense has never been the same. Sean McDermott is young, and I give him a lot of credit. Why? Because Sean McDermott in Buffalo got Tyrod Taylor to the playoffs, was in a division with Bill Belichick and Brady, oversaw the development of a quarterback, created a great defensive front. He gets credit for that. Matt LaFleur inherited a worse division, inherited a good roster, inherited a Hall of Fame quarterback. And because he's winning more in the regular season, we think he's a better coach than McCarthy. McCarthy dominated that division too, and it was better. They had a competent coach for 4 years in Jim Caldwell. Caldwell and Stafford, the 4 years together, 3 of them, they had a winning record. 1 year they won 11. Jay Cutler was in the division. Like him or not, he's better than Trubisky and a rookie Justin Fields. Minnesota had peaked before LaFleur got there. They lost Stefanski. Offense has never been the same. Kevin's a great offensive coach, great play caller. McDermott built things. That, to me, is a great coach. LaFleur inherited things. It doesn't mean you can't be great, but there's no proof you are. People say, well, he's dominating the division. Mike McCarthy dominated the division. Bill O'Brien won his division 4 times in 6.5 years. Is he a great head coach? When you look at Aaron Rodgers and what he's going to do. Now, by the way, Green Bay loses their offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach. Are we sure, when you look at Warren Sharp and all these overperforming and underperforming teams, the only common thread, you got to have a great coach. Matt LaFleur has a losing record in the playoffs, and he's losing at home as a favorite with Aaron Rodgers. Are we really, truly sure? Don't tell me, look at his records. That division now is a tire fire. McCarthy faced a better Detroit, a better Chicago, and a peaking Minnesota. I think it's interesting. I don't know what it all means. I know Aaron has a great relationship with Matt. It seems to. And that's important. But I think there's 8 coaches, and I didn't include Pete Carroll because I think in 2022 NFL football that's offensive-minded, he's fallen behind. I think his hires and draft picks have been very, very suboptimal. So it's just interesting when I kind of look at as our football season ends and we move into free agency here in a few weeks, who's overperforming every year? You want to be one of those fan bases. Who's underperforming? It's not always tied to quarterback, though generally is. What it's tied to is your coach. And sometimes we get fooled. Mike McCarthy kind of fooled us. Bill O'Brien kind of fooled us. Are we absolutely sure Matt LaFleur isn't kind of fooling us? Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.